In Ecuador, prosecutor Cesar Suarez was assassinated by hired killers in north of Guayaquil this Thursday. In Palestine, cuts in power and telecommunication services continue for 6 consecutive days in the Gaza Strip. And Egypt's revenues from the Suez Canal fell by 40% during the first 2 weeks of the year due to the crisis in the Red Sea. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Argentina, social, cultural and trade union organizations carry out several activities across the nation to show their rejection to the government of Javier Milei. A few days before the January 24th national airstrike, citizens marched this Wednesday against the adjustment policies of the omnibus law promoted by President Milei. The protest took place in the public squares with demonstrators carrying empty pots and open radios as an expression of insatisfaction for the financial crisis in the country. The leaders of the social organization pointed out that the measures taken by the government are an attack against the rights of the most disadvantaged and reflect the loss of social achievements and benefits. And we stay in Argentina, where the plenary of commissions of the Chamber of Deputies resume a new day of debate on the so-called omnibus bill promoted by the government of Javier Milei. For this 6th day, deputies will address the articles of the bill related to issues concerning security, education, health, and the modification of the civil code. It is also expected that by this Wednesday, the private sector entities will make their statements to the deputies. During this Tuesday, several human rights organizations and sectors of the civil society called for the rejection of the omnibus bill, stating that it is unacceptable that the executive power can modify an unprecedented number of norms that affect essential rights of the Argentine people. On Tuesday, Chile became the first country in the world to ratify the historic United Nations Agreement for the Protection of the Oceans. The national state unanimously approved the so-called Agreement on Marine Biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction. This pact, reached in March 2023, guarantees the conservation of 30% of the seas by 2030. Environmental groups have insisted for years that this treaty is vital to save the oceans, threatened by pollution, the climate crisis, and new technologies, and Chilean environmentalists have played a key role in the debate that led to this important agreement. In Ecuador, prosecutor Cesar Suarez was assassinated by hired killers in the north of Guayaquil this Thursday. The incident occurred on Bombero Avenue in the area of Rodriguez Bonin at 1:30 p.m. local time. The car in which the official was intercepted by hired assassins. According to preliminary information from the authorities, Cesar Suarez was on his way to the Alban Borja Judicial Unit for a hearing. The prosecutor was leading investigations on hospital corruption in the Ecuadorian Social Security Institute and in the Police Social Security Institute, both related to drug trafficking cases. Recently, he was also leading the case of terrorism registered in TC television channel. The President of Ecuador, Daniel Noboa, requested assistance from the government of the United States under the pretext of controlling the internal armed conflict in the country. Noboa assured that he would accept all possible international assistance to deal with the current contingency. In the meantime, social movements criticized the decision and pointed out that the new president, for his intentions to strengthen ties with Washington and facilitate the entry of troops from that North American country to Ecuador. In this sense, President Noboa assured in the next few days the United States will send to the country the commander of the Southern Command of the United States Army, General Laura Richardson, along with a delegation to Quito with the objective of materializing military logistic support.
Con los Estados Unidos We have had contact with the United States, and Commander Fitzpatrick is coming here with a delegation to talk to our armed forces and police in the next few days. They have not told us the exact time, but it will be this week. But even so, we still don't have a clear idea of the aid package he will see, which we still have to discuss because there are also needs to maintain this war, and there are also needs to maintain economic stability in the country.
The president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, during the 5th episode of the Maduro podcast, ratified that the indexed integral minimum vital income is a war economy mechanism to protect the Venezuelan family. The Venezuelan president emphasized that his administration knows the strategies and fair and adequate mechanism to face the war to which the country is subjected. The head of state highlighted that his administration also maintains a system that prioritizes investments in health, education, housing, fuel and water subsidies. In this respect, Maduro assured that his model of government is humanist and Christian since it looks after the interests of the citizens with special attention to the most vulnerable ones. In this sense, the Venezuelan president added that pensioners and retirees are also received a 333% increase. In Guatemala, the new board of directors of the Congress will request a study to the General Comptroller's Office to know the way in which the 9th legislature, which took office last Sunday, used the public funds assigned to the legislative organism. The new board of directors explained in a press conference that there was a good disposition of their predecessors to provide them with the required information. Both the new and outgoing boards held a meeting for several hours, and later the new congressional authorities received the directors and deputy directors of the legislative branch to learn about the state of the institution. In this sense, the President of the Congress, Samuel Perez, informed that besides requesting the support of the CGC with a special audit, they will carry out other evaluations that they consider necessary for the transparency in the Parliament. On Wednesday in Panama, the Public Services Authority confirmed that they will increase electricity rates from 2 to 15% in the first half of the year. The measure was approved by the entity in charge last December 28th, and it will be underway until June 30, 2024. The Department of Economic and Financial Analysis of the Panamanian Electricity Directorate reported that at least 74% of energy companies' clients will not register an increase because the decision will affect mainly high consumers. In this sense, specialists assured that this type of situation is a consequence of the drought and the high price of gas and fuel in the country. In Latin America, 4 out of every 5 people living in extreme poverty live in rural areas. This has been confirmed by the most recent report of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC. At a meeting convened by the organization and the International Fund for Agricultural Development held this Tuesday in Mexico, they warned that rural areas continue to be invisible. Despite some progress in the productive sector and the presence of services and industries, rural areas continue to lag far behind. The organizations present at the meeting have proposed, among other measures, to define a new rurality that address some aspects such as the recognition of the challenges and opportunities of these areas. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. The Gaza Health Ministry on Wednesday reported that in the last 12 hours, the Israeli occupation troops killed more than 80 Palestinians in different areas of the Gaza Strip. On the other hand, the authorities stress that most of the deaths are the result of a series of raids by the Zionist regime in which numerous workers have also been kidnapped. In turn, the Palestinian authorities confirmed more than 24,400 fatalities in 103 days of genocidal operation. Most of them are women and children. In Palestine, cuts in power and telecommunications services continue for 6 consecutive days in the Gaza Strip. Communications in Gaza have been disrupted several times since October 7th, when Israel launched intense attacks on the Palestinian territory. However, this was reported to be the longest such outage amid Israel's genocidal operation. According to telecommunications network watchdogs around the world, measurements show that the Palestinian territory has been experiencing an almost total telecommunication blackout for the past 120 hours. This action was qualified as a disturbance to the rights of the Palestinians since it keeps them out of the contact with the rest of the world. Several archaeological sites in Palestine have been targeted by bombardments of the Israeli occupation forces. The Palestinian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities pronounced itself against Israel's actions in the territory, stressing that the destruction in the Gaza and the archaeological sites is unprecedented. The entity also affirmed that the destruction of these emblematic sites is a direct aggression to the identity of the Palestinians. Furthermore, the Ministry of Tourism pointed out that the incursion of the occupation forces continue to greatly affect the tourist sites, generating heavy economic losses mainly for the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and Jerusalem. On Wednesday, the Red Crescent, sister organization of the International Red Cross for Arab countries, denounced a new attack by Israeli troops against its ambulances. According to the report, the events took place in Nablus in the Balara refugee camp in the occupied West Bank. The paramedics arrived to assist several civilians who were attacked inside a vehicle with a drone. They denounced that in the middle of the rescue work, the occupation troops continued shooting unarmed civilians. In this sense, the Registry of Non-Governmental Organizations lists at least 250 attacks against medical facilities and vehicles, a fact that qualifies as a war crime. Sigrid Kaag, the United Nations Senior Humanitarian and Reconstruction Coordinator for Gaza, arrived on Wednesday in Egypt at the request of the Security Council. In this sense, the official declared her objective is to accelerate all areas of assistance for the Palestinian people.
I'm here because of a mandate of the Security Council to see how we can facilitate, accelerate and expedite all areas of the assistance that is so much needed for civilians in Gaza, given the very acute humanitarian conditions that they have to live with. So this visit is for me to see, to discuss with colleagues how to improve, how we can assist the government and the Red Crescent as they wish and how they see it useful, so we can ultimately benefit the civilians, innocent civilians in Gaza. That is the sole.
Authorities in Egypt on Wednesday stressed that due to the crisis in the Red Sea, their nation's revenues from the Suez Canal fell by 40% during the first 2 weeks of the year. The Canal Authority, Osama Rabi, pointed out that the traffic through the waterway decreased by 30%, while he said that the temporary suspension in the area depended on some naval companies. In this context, he estimates that the traffic will be resumed in the course of the next few weeks, since the current insecurity of the route affects the world trade and has a direct impact on global inflation in the prices of goods. Using the port watch measurement tools, the International Monetary Fund reported a 33% decrease in the traffic. Let's recall that 12% of oil trade, 8% of world trade in grains, and 8% of world trade in liquefied natural gas transit through these waters. Iran and Pakistan held a day-long joint naval training exercise in the Strait of Hormuz and the northern end of the Persian Gulf. Combat ships and missile-launching warships of the Islamic Republic of Iran Navy and Pakistani Navy participated in the exercises, which were held Tuesday off the coast of the port city of Bandar Abbas in the southern Iran. Among the main objectives of the naval exercises of the two navies were to raise the level of interactions and training exchanges, promote military relations, and implement bilateral maritime agreements. In Germany, heavy snowfall and freezing rain on Wednesday caused the cancellation of hundreds of flights and trains, accidents on icy roads, and the closure of schools. At Frankfurt Airport, the country's largest, more than 500 flights were cancelled, while in Munich more than 250 arrivals and departures were cancelled. In western Germany, Saarbrücken Airport was closed for the day, while Düsseldorf and Cologne airports were also affected by delays and cancellations. National train operator Deutsche Bahn cancelled several long-distance connections and lowered the maximum speed of its ice-fast train to 200 km per hour. Freezing rain in western and southern Germany also caused countless accidents on icy roads in the early hours of Wednesday morning. Also in Norway, Oslo Airport announced on Wednesday the temporary closure of air traffic due to heavy snowfall affecting transportation throughout Scandinavia. In the meantime, authorities announced the closure until 3 p.m. local time and will later consider extending the closure. In this sense, most buses in Oslo were cancelled and the railway service announced the closure of train lines in much of eastern part of the country. In turn, the Norwegian Meteorological Institute warned of heavy snowfall and winds around nation's capital. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news, coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The government of Beijing reiterated on Wednesday that the One China principle is non-negotiable and that the so-called dollar diplomacy is not a reference tool for this issue. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning rejected claims that Beijing was allegedly pressuring Nauru to break off relations with Taiwan. She also emphasized that the One China principle is a fundamental principle that cannot be traded and has a prevailing international consensus. Mao Ning also referred to the result of the elections in Taiwan, emphasizing that they will not alter the legal status of the island, which is part of the Chinese territory. On Wednesday, an explosion at a fireworks factory in central Thailand killed at least 23 people, according to provincial officials. The death toll was announced by authorities with Suphanburi province, where the blast occurred in mid-afternoon. The Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation said officials were working to secure the site and help affected people. The cause of the explosion is being investigated. Meanwhile, the blast came less than a month before Chinese New Year in February, when demand for fireworks is strong. Rescue workers at the scene said no survivors had been found. None were mentioned by provincial authorities, contradicting the department's statement that wounded people had been recovered. The Russian Foreign Ministry said that the fourth meeting on Ukraine at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, was a failure for Kyiv and the Western countries. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said that the outcome was again a failure for Ukraine and its Western sponsors. She recalled that China refused to participate and many other nations were present with a low profile and as observers. In this context, Zakharova emphasized that all meetings in the Copenhagen format, including Davos and subsequent rounds, are useless and detrimental to the settlement of the Ukrainian crisis. Also, in statements to the press, Foreign Minister spokeswoman Maria Zakharova assured that Western countries do not care about the fatalities caused by their attacks in Yemen and other countries, since they carry out bombings on any target when they consider it necessary, regardless of the consequences they could have. The spokeswoman criticized the fact that the West does not think about the number of children, women, elderly or sick people in the area they attack. According to Zakharova, the only thing the West has historically been concerned about is that the profit it can make through the bombings. And we stay in Russia, where more than 2 million people have signed documents supporting President Vladimir Putin's candidacy for the upcoming presidential election. According to Russian law, independent candidates must collect at least 300,000 signatures from 40 regions or more to be eligible to run in the elections. President Putin has so far collected 2.5 million signatures, almost 1 million more than in 2018. The Election Commission has already approved 3 candidates for the ballot who were nominated by parties with parliamentary representation, and therefore they do not require to collect signatures. Nikolai Kharitonov of the Communist Party, Leonid Slutsky of the Nationalist Liberal Party, Democratic Party, and Vladislav Davankov of the New People's Party. In Zambia, a cholera outbreak has so far caused 363 deaths, 30% of them children under 5 years of age, and more than 9,500 cases of illness. According to authorities, the outbreak, which began in early October, has spread to most parts of the country, but the increase in cases in the capital, Lusaka, is very significant. Authorities have mobilized resources to contain the outbreak. Cholera outbreaks in Zambia coincide with the summer rainy season, which brings heavy rainfall, causing severe flooding in many areas. Inadequate wastewater management systems and lack of access to clean drinking water in many underutilized and informal settlements in Lusaka lead to cholera outbreaks. Zambian authorities accepted the first batch of 1.4 million oral cholera vaccines delivered on Monday by Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, and other partners. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.